I got one of my first jobs in high school, and I was at a shopping mall. I'll never forget the experience. It was a ice cream scooper. So I was scooping ice cream for people, and I got that job because the girl I was interested in high school was across the mall in the shoe store. She was working there, and I kind of wanted to see if I could, stay close to her and see if we could work things out and go to work together, etc. So my first day on the job, and she was looking at me from across, right out the other window. The owner of the store said to me, "Look, see what happens when people sample ice cream is they take their gum out and they throw it on the floor because you get a little sampler on a
Yeah.
little piece of wood. And so by the end of the day, the floor is completely black with gum plastered all over it. So she said to me, listen, before you leave today, get down on your knees and scrape the gum off the tile. And you have to do that every day." This girl I was talking about was watching me, and I said, wait a second, you hired me as an ice cream scooper, not a gum scraper. I mean, I'm happy to, scoop ice cream, but I don't want to get on my knees and wash the floor. And she said, you're going to do whatever I say. I own this store. You're my employee. If you, and I said, well, I'm not doing it. My job description was an ice cream scooper. She said, well, how about this? You're fired.
Wow.
And I didn't even know what fired meant, but I figured it out pretty quickly. And that was very humiliating for me. I had to ride my bicycle home, tell my mother what happened. And so at that moment, I realized something very important. It was a big lesson in life for me that there's two types of people in the world. There's people that own the store, and there's the people that scrape the shit off the floor. And you have to kind of decide which one you are. And it doesn't mean that being an employee is a bad thing. You can have a fantastic life as being a great employee and working for somebody and support your family and everything else. But that's not for me. I don't want somebody telling me what to do. It's that simple. And that was the beginning of my path. Now, the day I became wealthy I never saw it coming. Someone bought our company for $4.2 billion, the Mattel toy company, and the 10 of us that started it the next morning were, it's a huge liquidity event. I didn't stop working. I've been working ever since that day.
So I want to kind of follow up on what you just said. So your success in a big part was attributed because you got a job to impress or be with a girl. And because of what happened at your job, that was kind of your, wow, I can either own the store or I can be the one working at it.
Right. That's basically what happened. But it was a very tough lesson because it really showed me the differences between the pursuit of personal freedom and that's what I think when I guest lecture now to graduating cohorts of engineers mostly, I tell them, it's never about money. It has nothing to do with money. Personal freedom is a burning desire for many people. And the only way you can get that is to achieve success as an entrepreneur. Unless someone just gives you, enough money to live freely. I don't know. That's not easy to do. But to me, it was, pursuit of that freedom. And then along the way, I was very fortunate. And I think that's always been my burning desire. I want to be able to spend my time doing the things I want to do. I don't, one of the great outcomes of entrepreneurship is the ability to decide how to spend your time. And so I want to be doing this with you today. There's no reason I wouldn't. But if I didn't want to, I don't have to. And that's the whole point of it. That's why I tell, young entrepreneurs, understand what the goal is. It has nothing to do with greed. It has to do with personal freedom.
Well, I appreciate you spending your time with me today. I want to dive a little bit deeper to your time in high school because I want to know kind of who were you in high school? I know you used to have a beard, which you no longer have. Maybe one day it'll come back. But what kind of person were you in high school?
Well, I also used to have hair, and I don't think that's coming back. So it's sort of, I was, I wanted to pursue photography and cinematography and, be a commercial photographer and film producer. That's what I really wanted to do. And my stepfather said to me, look, you're not good enough in those fields. They're highly competitive. You're probably going to starve to death. Maybe you should pursue a business degree. This is after I'd graduated from undergrad because, basically I spent my undergrad in arts and psychology, chasing girls and doing what all college students do, have a great time. But when I graduated, I really had nothing to show for it. I mean, I'm happy to get a degree. That's great. But it was not in a discipline that I could find a living or form a living. And so he said, look, you should you should go and get a business degree. And then no matter what discipline you pursue, at least you'll have the building blocks for business. It was great advice. And I was able to do that. And that's, the next path. That was the next path. And when I got out of business school, then I formed a television production company. And I was able to, at that time, start doing sports programming for the networks around the original 6 hockey teams in New York, Detroit, Boston, etc. And that company was quite successful, and we sold it. And then I started the learning company next, or it was called SoftKey first, and then the learning company. And that's the one we sold for $4.2 billion. So it's kind of a serendipitous path. You never know how it's going to turn out.
So on that point, I think a big point of debate now amongst a lot of people is college. And my question is, does college matter? And the reason why I'm asking is because I grew up in a traditional Indian house. My parents are immigrants from a state called Punjab. And like a lot of Indian immigrants, my parents always told me that if you want to become successful, you have to become a doctor. It's like the path to wealth. That's what I was always taught. Now, for me, I went through schooling. I don't use any of my degrees. But what value does college have nowadays? Does it still have the same value it did when you were in college?
Well, those are great observations you're making, because I'll tell you the truth, I don't use my degrees either. I don't even remember anything about what I took in my MBA. It doesn't matter. What the value is the people I met during that program ended up being very important to me in my career. And I've always thought of education really as a chance to expand your contacts, even whether it's undergrad or graduate work, is that you're creating a network, a social network. And in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, you need to know people that can help you in different disciplines. And I never realized that when I was going through it, but I don't remember anything of some basic variable cost analysis or something. I don't really remember or care, but I can tell you my success in business had a lot to do with the contacts I met there. And when I teach now, I recently taught a graduating class at Harvard just this week, and I told them the same lesson. The prof didn't like to hear that, but it's the truth. I said, it's the people sitting beside you right now. Some of you are virtual, some of you physically there, that are going to be the most important thing you get out of this education, not the actual coursework or cases. It's kind of, real life will teach you that. But the contacts you have are extremely valuable. So I would argue that there is value in college. There is value there. But while you're at it, pick a discipline. I know your parents told you doctor, but I told my kids engineering. Like I said to them, look, if you want a great outcome for what you're borrowing for college, is engineering. And if you have time at night, do some engineering. But it's sort of, these days artists are becoming very valuable because of the digital economy. So it's always different for each generation.
So I want to go back to when you sold the learning company for $4 billion, because you said you sold the company and now you finally had some liquidity. So when you were building the company, I'm assuming you must have had a lot of revenue to sell the company for billions of dollars. When you made your first $1 million, did you think you were rich?
It's a great question. The way that happens, and I've talked to many other entrepreneurs that have had big liquidity events. At the time the learning company was acquired, it was the largest publisher of educational software in the world. And it, did business in, I think, 46 countries. And we were the number one supplier for Apple and schools and all kinds of different products. And we had hundreds of different products, including big titles like Rita Rabbit, Carmen Sandiego, Oregon Trail,
wow,
Mavis Beacon. I mean, those
wow.
are still out in the markets today. So it's sort of, but really, you never, when you're really passionate about what you're doing, you don't really notice how this wealth thing occurs, because I owned a lot of founder shares. I was one of the founding members of the company, and one day they were turned into cash through an acquisition. And I remember we all sat around the next day and said, what do we do? I mean, we all just went back to work. We didn't know what else to do. And so it's sort of, it provided for a lot of different things for my family and everything else, but it's never been my motivation. I mean, I don't do things I don't want to do. And luckily I've made plenty of bad investments too. But, fortunately I make enough good ones that I have all I can use. And I don't need more money. I want to do things that I really enjoy, and that provides me the ability to have those opportunities. And by the way, now I'm completely back into photography again. I've got a guitar collection that's absolutely huge. I was actually a shareholder of Fender for a while. So I got my dreams in a reverse order. I wanted to be a rock star, but it took me a long time to get there.
You're gonna have to regrow the hair, man.
Yeah, I have to. I have to do that. But it's really interesting. I just I do a lot of work with the guitar companies now, and I'm very big in watch collecting and things that I really have a passion for. That this freedom provides me.
The thing that I want to dive a little bit deeper into on this topic is, especially nowadays, we talk about entrepreneurs making the first $1 million. When you make $1 million, I think a lot of people have the kind of misconception that, oh, I made $1 million, now I must be rich. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, you make $1 million, all of the $1 million goes right back into your company because you want to grow it bigger. So is the way for someone to now build a business and sell it, or how do you now kind of pull out some of the capital from a business that you're making money on?
My mother taught me something that I really didn't value until later in life, but she, as a young working woman in her 20s, used to take 20% of her paycheck, and she would invest it in two things: telco bonds, because back in those days, she said people would rather turn off their heat than not be able to talk to people.
Wow.
So in those days, those bonds would produce 6 or 7%, for 5 to 7 year duration. And the other half was in dividend paying S&P stocks. And when she all through her working career, she just put 20% into that and never took it out. And she lived off the interest of the dividends. And what happened when she passed away, I was the older brother. I became the executor for the estate. And the lawyer called me downtown and said, listen, your mother died a very wealthy woman and you're the executor. And I said, that can't be. Well, she'd kept that account secret from both of her husbands. She was married twice.
You're kidding.
And and she did it for herself. And I always wondered how she could afford to take care of her whole family and put my brother and I through college and, all kinds of just, myopic focus on keeping herself financially independent and not even disclosing it to anybody. And when I called up my brother and I said, you can't believe this. Her portfolio was very conservative, but over the 50 years that she had it, it grew immensely because she just compounded those interest payments and dividend yields. And that's the magic of, what I've learned. In fact, there's 100 million Americans today that do not have anything set aside for their retirement in their 60s. And that's one of the initiatives I've started. I have a product called Beanstox, Beanstox, that you can download. It's an app. It's one of the robo-advisors, but I've built mine to be incredibly simple, to kind of emulate what my mother did. Take, a minimum of $100 a week, put it aside, and we put it into indexes and ETFs in the market, and it grows with you your whole life, and it automatically transfers it from your payroll if you wish. And it does something for you that, as an entrepreneur, even if you're just working, it forces you to invest in yourself. And I think that's really, really important, because if you want to end up in a good place when you're 65, you need, if you put $100 a week aside in your early 20s, you'll end up with about $1.5 million, $1.7 million if the markets do what they've done for over 100 years, kind of give you 6, 7, 8, 9%, returns each year. And they go up and down and everything else. But the point is, you're constantly putting that $100 in a week. So Beanstox was my answer to that, to say, look, this is something you do anyways. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you still have that nest egg that you're putting aside for. And that's what my mother taught me. And I always had that. I always tried to put enough aside just in case the poo-poo hit the fan.
That's a great point, and it's a great transition into what I want to talk about next, which is how somebody young who is now getting started into investing, because there's a lot of people getting into the investing space. We've been seeing a massive boom in the retail trading and investing space. How should a young person invest their money? Because your mother clearly was big on dividend stocks, things that pay interest. Is that the best way to go forward now for a young person?
Well, there's a difference between day trading and investing. There's nothing wrong with day trading. And I think there's over 20 million people doing it right now just on Robinhood alone. So it's been a very successful platform. But that's not the same as investing. It's very, very difficult over a long period of time to beat the index when you're day trading, because you have you tend to be concentrated on just a very few names, and you're constantly trading them in and out. And I think it's fun in some ways, and nothing wrong with it. But I always tell people, if you get winnings from day trading, take them and put them in to an index of some kind that you just store away, that you don't risk. You just let it sit there and grow, whether that's 10 or 15%, whatever it is. That's investing when you do that. Day trading is a form of gambling, which is really exciting, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a wonderful thing that people do it, but it's not going to help you long term, because very, very, very few people can beat the indexes over a long period of time day trading.
So you're saying if somebody made a lot of money off of the GameStop saga, take some of that money and put it into an index that's going to help you make money for the long term.
Exactly. That's the right strategy. And that's the right thing to do for your retirement. You've got to have that thing just compounding. Get any one of the robo apps and do it that way, because a trading platform where you're picking a name and day trading in and out is very, very difficult to grow wealth with.